loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that body.
I think I mentioned, what, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Five Focus, the podcast, here on the Red Devil Radio Show Facebook page, YouTube, and Spotify channels as well. And before we go any further, I'm excited to tell you, happy opening day. Happy opening day. Let's go Bravos. As this episode drops on opening day of the 2024 Major League Baseball season, we're going to talk about it just a little bit later on in the program. I'm Adam Ward. I'm joined this evening alongside Jonathan Bartlett, Drew Sims, Greg Mears, and we hope that Jeremy Johnson is going to be able to join us at some point throughout the course of this episode. No promises, no guarantees. When you're trying to get more people together, it just makes it that much harder due to schedules. But hopefully JJ can join us because we want to get his thoughts on some things that happened over the weekend in the NCAA basketball tournament on the men's side of things. Let's give you the social so you know where you can always check us out and find us. We are on Facebook.com/Red Devil Radio Show. Of course, we're also on Twitter, as I mentioned a moment ago. YouTube or Twitter, the @Red Devils Fun 927. You got to use that @ symbol. We're on YouTube @Red Devil Radio Show there as well, and on Spotify, just search for Five Focused : the podcast. Tonight's episode, just as it has been throughout the entire month of March, is brought to you by our friends over at FYFFE. And I hope that Miss Johnson and Levon and all the crew will be willing to stay on with us, maybe at least another month or so. And because we enjoy telling you about FYFFE, and I'll tell you, 2 locally owned retired educators take care of this thing. There are 5 graduates spanning 3 generations. Folks, fully licensed, certified. If you're worried about such things, don't. They're going to get it taken care of. They've already got it taken care of with 3 trailers. They can be at any event that you have, whether it be church, baseball, softball, work event. Maybe you're putting a community event on. You know, the 4th of July is coming up in just a few months. It seems like down the road, everybody's already beginning to make plans for that. All these big cities. If you're a city councilman, a mayor, and you're listening to the podcast, consider getting Johnson's FYFFE out at the avenue, the venue for whatever it is, whatever event you're putting on. They can show up for birthday parties, bar mitzvahs if you want them there at your bar mitzvah, whatever. They can be there for you. Johnson's FYFFE with 35 flavors of shaved ice. And I know it's warming up a bit, but if you're still cool, they still have hot chocolate, spice cider, coffee, and cold weather. And of course, there's 2 guys that are on the podcast on this team that if you want some more personal, in-depth info on, you could talk with Greg and Jeremy as they taught you guys. They've been lifelong friends with you guys for, I think Greg said, going on 50 years a few episodes back. So they know each other very well. Ask them. Get with them. They'll tell you just how good Johnson's FYFFE is. Let me give you the number, 256-717-7239. Again, that phone number to contact them, 256-717-7239. Now, what's coming up on tonight's episode of the podcast? We go to a segment. We may stick with this one for a few weeks here called How It Works, Position Groups with Drew and Greg. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk about 2 other position groups, one on each side of the ball in particular. We'll tell you more about that in just a bit. We'll also give you an NCAA tournament update, give you our thoughts on that. That's the one that we're really hoping JJ is here for. We'll have the Where Was Greg t-shirt segment and the 10 minutes of crap, followed by coming up at 5. So, without further ado, as I adjust this because this thing is sitting on that little knot on the top of the hat and it's pushing down on the top of the skull, let's get this thing rolling here this evening, this afternoon, whatever time you're listening, with How It Works, Position Groups with Drew and Greg. Now, this was a thought that I had, and folks know that Drew and I, we're family, and so we were on a little family trip, and I got to ask him, hey, what do you think about this idea? And it's nothing out of this world spectacular, shall we say, but I kind of thought, some of our listeners are more or less interested in Fife. They don't always know, though, what we mean when we say certain things on the radio, or specifically when we talk about a specific position or a specific position group. So we wanted to kind of take a few weeks here and highlight some of these things. And tonight we're talking QBs and middle linebackers, and especially the general kind of aspect of it, as well as the Fife aspect, because Drew, Greg, you both know, coming from the same program but different eras, different ways of running it, there are similar ways that every program does things. Every program you can about count on does certain things a certain way, and then there's their own spin on it. There's their own way on it, and especially under Coach Benefield with the ugly offense. In this case, for a quarterback and the way he chooses to run a defense. Let's give the folks an in-depth look at that. So, Greg, I'll start with you on this, and let's take it back to what football was specifically for a quarterback and a middle linebacker. What do you remember? I know you weren't a quarterback in high school, but what do you remember? How were those positions then? How were they expected to manage the game then?
Well, we were such a small school back then. We had, I think, 25 or 26 people is all we had out. So we broke off into groups, but we didn't get very specific because we just couldn't. I mean, our two running backs were our two linebackers, and a lot like FYFFE is still today. But for the most part, we split up into line and the backs. And so the offensive, defensive line would go work on drills, and then the offensive backs or defensive backs would be working together. So you'd have your quarterbacks in, and they'd be throwing routes. We would only have two, and they'd be throwing routes or running whatever veer or whatever it was. And that would be a little segment of when we were split. So the offense would be split. I think we were in probably 5 minutes or 10-minute drills, blow the whistle, then you'd switch to something else. And that may be defensive backs working on coverage. That may be the good old, we get together and do the good old Oklahoma drill back in the day and some of those things, bull in the ring back when you could hit people. But for the most part, we split off into just like that, groups of backs together and linemen together. So again, like I said, because we couldn't even scrimmage, a full scrimmage. We had to go left side against right side. So it was kind of the way it worked. We didn't have enough to do it. So I'm sure that's a lot different than what Drew experienced. But we did still break up into things. It wasn't strictly quarterbacks.
Yeah, I guess that's a big difference. Or well, one of the differences we had. I know FYFFE's numbers have come down a little bit since I was in school. I think we had 48 my senior year, which was a lot.
Well,
don't get me wrong, that was a lot for FYFFE. That was a big team.
Yeah. Drew, let me say one thing real quick too. Just before we get bigger, let you get to your part. But that was part of 5 too. There was no Pee Wee, there was no JV. So you were ninth grade on if you were good enough to play in the ninth. Otherwise, you didn't have anything to do. Some things don't change. We had a Gibson on the team as an 8th grader. I think that goes on today. A starter, not Larry, that was his brother. Jack Gibson went on to play at UNA, was all Gulf South Conference and all that fun stuff. But yeah, we didn't. I mean, there wasn't even a JV team. So if you weren't on the varsity, you didn't play.
All right, and let me ask, how many coaches y'all had, Greg?
2.
See that?
Yep, 2. We had Coach Householder. Yeah, Coach Householder and Coach Gann. Gann did the line, House did the backs.
Yeah, that's a big. I'll say big difference. That 48 with 48, we split up a little more. I think we had different days, right? So on Mondays we did defense. So you had the linebackers split up in a group, the defensive line split up in a group, and then you had the defense, like the safeties and defensive backs. So we had 3 kind of big groups. Every once in a while, we would break up outside linebackers and middle linebackers, or sometimes the outside linebackers may go with the defensive linemen. Sometimes the defensive linemen and linebackers may be together. So, but there was, gosh, I'd have to count. There was enough coaches to where even if we split up into just strictly position groups, there was at least one coach with each one on defense and offense. And then on offensive day, the quarterbacks would be split by themselves. You had the running back or backs. You don't really have receivers at FYFFE. The tight ends went with the linemen. You had linemen, running backs, and quarterbacks on offense. And when I was in school, Coach Benefield and Coach Thomas worked with the quarterbacks. Coach Mashburn and Coach Age worked with the linemen on offense. And then Coach Coots worked with the linebackers on Coach Coots and Coach Edge both worked with the linebackers on defense. And then let's see. That's it. I covered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's different than when Greg was in school for sure.
As we continue the conversation, let's get down into the nitty gritty here and talk we'll go defensive side of the ball first, because that's exactly what Fife kind of really chooses to kind of set itself apart as. A lot of folks want to look at the ugly offense and say, you know, that's all Fife Scott. That's all Fife Scott. But Greg, even in the Coach Haushalter days, this was a defensive minded program, and Coach Benefield will tell you that's
Yeah.
where he got his mentality and his mindset from. The ugly offense didn't come along until 2014. He was prided his teams on being tough, physically, mentally, and emotionally on defense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we won that. Back then they were areas. There was 8 teams, so you had to win 7 games pretty much, and it was one team win. But yeah, we were all defense. I mean, we won. I think out of 2 of the games, we won 7-0. We won 1 6-0. Up until the last 2 games, I think 14 points was the most we gave up during the year. So it was very much a defensive. It was very physical. He, like you said, we ran a numbers defense, and it was all sorts of stunts and linemen doing all sorts of different stuff. A couple different things in the backfield. We go 3 deep, 4 deep. Again, back then it was a little bit nicer because you didn't really have to worry about anybody except for Collinsville throwing the ball. So as a cornerback, they'd come up and take out the pitch man. That was my job pretty much 99% of the time. And people didn't do a whole lot of different stuff either. They ran a veer, they ran a wishbone. They would have favorite plays. Plainview's favorite play was a sprint draw to Mickey Willingham. You could count on them running that about 30 times a game and doing you to stop it. But yeah, I mean, and again, and back to what you just said about Coach Benefield and the Pee Wee football, he may get that a little bit from Coach House, because that was it. He was dead set against Pee Wee football. He thought it would burn kids out by the time they got to high school. So he was dead set against that. That's why they never had one. Or to the best of my knowledge, I don't know how much you could really control it. Probably a lot more back then than now, honestly.
Right, right. Well, Drew, sort of along that same vein, on the defensive side, you've got your middle linebacker. You played linebacker in school. You played a variety, really, of positions, but especially on that defensive front. I can go back in my brain and recall a few plays in the state championship alone that you helped make, and we're trying to make sure that nobody got off your side. They didn't get around you. Tell me about the way that Coach Benefield runs his linebackers, specifically what he expects of them and what their job is.
It depends. When we were seniors, we could kind of switch between a more of the traditional. I don't want to call it a 5-2, but that's what it ends up being. 2 linebackers, or we could run a 3-3 stack. So in a 3-3 stack, what you're doing is you're trying to bring as many people from as many different angles as possible, kind of like what Greg was talking about. In a 3-3, you're running in a 3-3, at least 2 of the linebackers are stunting almost every time. Not every time, almost every time. And then in the standard defense, you may have 1 rushing, you may not. So, but really in Coach Benefield's defense, he wants the linebackers to be the one to kind of get at least the defensive front and the rest of maybe the outside linebackers in the right place. Because sometimes I can remember when we were preparing for the state championship game, they were just I don't want to say messing with us, but just throwing out there that something that Coach Benefield randomly come up with to see how we would react. And me and EB Carroll pretty much just flipped the whole defense. And they were like, "That's right." I was like, okay. So
that's one thing that I think you've mentioned before, though, talking about Coach Benefield using linebackers to sort of get guys in position. You guys, and I think you at one point said you were that guy. You got to be one of the guys that was kind of like the coach on the field, if you will. You were an extension of Coach Benefield and the staff out there. You weren't obviously calling plays. High school doesn't have the speaker in the helmet kind of thing to hear the plays called out or anything like that. But you were sort of that extension out there to line everybody up. Is that something that he typically sticks with year in and year out, or does he base it kind of on the individual no matter what position?
I think it's on the individual to some. I mean, we had wristbands, and we had all the defensive calls on a wristband, and the coaches called it from the sideline, so everybody knew what it was. But if they came out, and so say if you're a defensive lineman and you're on a knee waiting to get in your stance, and they come out in a weird formation, are you going to see it? as well as a linebacker that's standing 5 foot away from, 3 yards away from the ball, looking at it? Probably not. So, yeah, yes, it's on the individual. I say he wants the linebackers to do it. I don't know that he does want them to per se. It just depends on the year. I mean, you can't tell me if Tucker Wilkes saw something this year. Everybody's going to do it, whatever he thinks needs to be done. So it's just dependent on the year. And speaking to Greg's point, they probably had a better defensive average than us, but we played 15 games and we allowed 113 points. But at like 7.5 a game. So,
and part of that 7.5 a game would have been like garbage time give up kind of stuff too.
I mean, man, yeah, this still got give up though.
Yeah.
I mean, we averaged 46, so that's probably the difference.
Yeah, y'all averaged 46, and we probably averaged about 14 or 15. I mean, I thought the highest thing we scored, I think, was against Crossville. I think we hit the 30s. That was the only time we hit the 30s. I mean, our games, when it's 6-0 or 7-0 late in the fourth quarter, everything's getting a little nail biting going on.
Yeah,
especially when you're out there going.
We got held to in the 30s twice. Every other game was 40 or above.
Well, so as a defensive back, you're sitting there going, please, God, don't let me be the one that gives up the touchdown.
So basically, as we get ready to transition, because you kind of went the offensive direction there, and I like it because basically the middle linebacker and really the linebacking core as a whole, in particular at FYFFE, is used to kind of get everything set. And of course, sort of be an extension not only of coach out on the field, but certainly of that defensive line in large part at FYFFE anyway. They like to put a lot of pressure on you, send a lot of guys to rush the quarterback in some instances, whether we're playing like Sylvania, who has been running some of the spread here in the last few years, although that may change under new leadership at Sylvania. But on the offensive side, Greg, things are a little bit different nowadays than what they were back in your day. And I want you to kind of give us how quarterbacks operated back then, both individually and in the system versus what you see today. And then Drew can give us a little bit of the perspective from FYFFE's aspect, because FYFFE utilizes a quarterback a little differently than most schools do now. Yeah. So back then you mentioned the word veer earlier, for instance. That's a unique offense that quarterbacks have to be very, very capable of running. Folks can only get a taste of it like this much in that movie, Remember the Titans. They don't get a whole lot of understanding what all that means. So tell us what exactly the quarterback's responsibility was back in your day and how things were ran at FYFFE.
Well, believe it or not, even with Coach Householder, Glenn Raines was our quarterback, and he had some from free range out there to call his own plays. Now, most of the time on offense, Coach House set somebody in. We were exchanging somebody in, the wideouts. So it'd be James Abernathy, Billy Keith, Kelly Gilland going in, because we'd usually run 2 wide or we might run, doubles to one side like that at one point in time. But for the most part, Glenn had some leeway. So if we came up and there was a formation on defense that was something different, he could switch from a running play to a passing play. Veer offense is basically just a different version of a as an option kind of offense. You've got a fullback and a tailback in pretty much every time. And you're reading that defensive end pretty much, whether going to dive it to the fullback or keep the ball or pitch it. So you had to be a tough quarterback. Glenn Raines was a tough dude, man. He took some shots, but we also again threw it. And again, in today's day and age, it's not very much, but compared to what you see FYFFE do now, we probably threw it 10 to 15 times a game also. So again, you had some leeway. So with Drew talking about defense, man, I know that our middle linebacker called the plays for us, called the defensive sets. But you know what? I'm going to have to talk to some of my buddies that can remember more than me, because I cannot remember for the life of me how we got those plays in. Whether it was signals from Coach Gann or I don't remember people interchanging out like they did on offense.
I mean, there's a number system. I can't remember it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, it's just, all the play card is just a card with the play call. And it's got a number beside it. And the numbers change. They gave us new ones every week.
Yeah.
The numbers changed every week, so they were never the same. But the number system call was always the same, whatever it was.
And ours was pretty much just for the alignment on how because like I said, they were stunting every time. pretty much every time they were taking a
That's
different
what
gap.
see now. This is it. I guess this is something to bring up. That's what those were too. So they were for either a stunt, base, whatever. They had specific calls for if they wanted a stunt, like a specific stunt that wasn't necessarily on the thing. They had signals for that. Now, when I was in school, I don't know if they do this now. The defensive back coach called the coverage.
Yeah.
So they got a different call than the ones up front.
Yeah, see, of course we didn't have any of that. Nobody really threw the ball again that much,
Right.
so there wasn't really any blitzes. I'd never blitzed. Right. Any of the defensive backs never had any type of blitz. Linebackers very, very seldom. Every now and then we would run like a 5-2 instead of a 4-3. If we ran a 5-2, then we would be in a 3-deep coverage. Other than that, it was always 4. It was always 2 corners, 2 safeties. Right. I guess they call that Tampa 2 now.
Yes, they do. Yeah. And they don't switch up the coverages very much. I'll say that. They kind of stick with one. I mean, because it's around here, nobody just sits back and throws every single time.
Yeah.
So they didn't switch up a lot then. They'd run it maybe 2 times in a row, and then they may switch up. But not, like I said, the call was mainly for the front 7.
Yeah.
Well,
that was the same thing.
A lot of that throwing the football around pretty much all game didn't come along until Steve Spurrier went home to mama, if you will, at Florida. And when he found success there, it took off like a bottle rocket across all leagues, whether it be high school or the NFL. Everybody started wanting to try and do it. At FYFFE, though, Drew, they do things a little bit different, and specifically going back to 2014. When Coach changed the ugly offense to the ugly offense, it's not a pretty name for the way that FYFFE does things. Normally, when you see this type of offense, you line the quarterback up under center, but he found good reason at a clinic, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken. He came across this at a clinic and kind of began to morph this to fit FYFFE and what FYFFE could do. He lined the quarterback up in the gun and gives different responsibilities per se than what you might think of nowadays in 2024 as a prototypical quarterback. The draft's coming up before long, and everybody's looking at how many yards these guys have thrown in college, 4,500 yards and 50 touchdowns and that kind of thing. You don't see that at FYFFE. You're not going to see that at FYFFE. But that doesn't mean that the avenue hasn't changed a bit with each different person lining up as the quarterback. For instance, I'll give it this. When you have a Seth Benefield lining up in the backfield at quarterback, or you have a Zach Pyron or an Ike Rao, I vehemently remember there were more run plays specifically designed for those guys. But it might have been for a factor of just having that extra ability. It could also been maybe a little bit of lack of depth in the running back room at that moment. But then you turn around and you look at someone, in this case, like Blake Dobbins, who's the quarterback at this point, not saying that he's not capable, but when you've got somebody like Logan Anderson and Ryder Gibson, a pretty darn good 1-2 combo back there, you don't have to rely on near as much and can keep him a little bit more fresh. So when you do call his number to run, you can. So it kind of varies a little bit, it looks like, from person to person lining up at quarterback. But give us what kind of goes into the quarterback play at FYFFE in particular in this ugly offense.
Well, most people probably watch the quarterback and think, well, all he does is stand there and hand it off. Look, I promise you there's a whole lot more that goes into it than that. Like, pre-snap, there's not a lot to be done because Coach Benefield calls the plays. There is no leeway. Like, you call it, you run the play that's called. And then, if there's any motion before the snap, they're the one that calls it. They call the snap count. But after that, their footwork and their technique and handing the ball off is actually a big deal to how successful the play is. Because then they have to catch the snap, then they have to get it in the running back's belly, then without basically handing it to them on a silver platter, without stepping on their feet, without doing anything, out of the ordinary for the plays to work right. It takes a lot. It really does. And as far as throwing, they do. I mean, there is concepts. Obviously, I was not a quarterback, so I don't know all of them. But I remember Coach talking about short, medium, and long range throws. He didn't talk about throw windows as much as I hear thrown around a lot. He talked about like levels, if that makes sense. Like level 3, this is how high you want the ball to be. Level 2, you kind of want some zip on it. Then level 1, you want it low or kind of low and fast, really fast. So there's a lot into being a quarterback. More than people think. It's not just handing the ball off or running it every once in a while. And I would say that, the running back or the quarterback essentially is a glorified running back at 5. It's not a all exclusive position, to be honest, because he wants those quarterbacks to run just as hard as any of the running backs, and he expects them to not lose the ball either.
I wanted to give the folks a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of an in-depth look, because a lot of times I know folks sometimes will come up to me and say, I didn't quite understand what you meant Friday night. I didn't quite understand. So we're going to try and do that a little bit each and every week here over the next few weeks and give you an idea of some of these other position groups and really try to highlight some other young men who are finding themselves on this football team, because we always talk about Logan Anderson. Everybody talks about Tucker Wilkes and Brody Hicks last year and all of these other great athletes and deservedly so. But there's a lot more to this football team, this football program, than just Coach Benefield and a couple of 3-star players out there that are putting in just as hard a work and doing just as good a job out there. Let's move on to
Hey,
our
Adam, I
next
got
segment.
one thing real quick. I was just going to let
Go
y'all know I actually met the Sylvania coach today and one of his assistants. I came in down at Fort Payne and got to talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes. Seems like a really nice guy, obviously, but I tell you what, they're getting younger and younger. Man, this dude looked like he was 21. If he was a day over 15, man, I was like, good Lord. I don't know if he started shaving yet or not.
Well, hey, a couple of quick things as we get ready to transition here. First of all, we got 5 windows up, which means we've got everybody on the crew on this podcast tonight. It only took us 7 episodes to get everybody on. But welcome everybody. Welcome everybody from the crew. And second of all, I didn't think about this. Drew pointed it out before we hit the record button. Everybody on this broadcast crew come July will be girl dads. So I'm joining the club, gents. I'm joining the club.
Hey, I'm a girl grandpa, buddy. You're not the only
Adam,
one.
Adam,
yeah.
All I can tell you is be ready for that beard you got right now to look a lot more like JJ's as she gets older and older.
That's all being a girl dad times 2. Yeah.
As long as I can keep it shaved down a little bit. JJ's a little puffy for me, but
it's going to change. Down. It's going to change colors. Is all I'm saying.
Let's move on and get JJ and JB involved in the conversation, because it's time to talk NCAA tournament time. The weekend, the first and second rounds are over. Round of 64, round of 32. Let me give the quick rundown of this, and then JJ, I've been waiting on it. I'll let you tear into it. Samford gets hosed. UAB falls to San Diego State. Auburn lets Yale slip by them. And I legitimately mean they let them slip by. Alabama thumps Charleston and then turns around in the round of 32 and wins an absolute war with Grand Canyon. And in my opinion, a ball game that we needed to see from Alabama, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stay on that game too long because there's one game in particular that I got to tell you, JB, you told me several years ago that you were outright frank with me about not letting sports bother me too bad. And I took that to heart, and I've been working on that even before you and I met, but I really started trying to put that into practice. That got tested the other night, JJ, when Samford got hosed on what should have been a block and not a foul call.
Yeah.
Take off. All I know is give you the floor.
So all I want to say right here is my bracket sucks. Apparently, I have no clue how to pick basketball games.
I'm 24 out of 26. I'm just saying.
I did pick Samford because the way I figured you have to pick an upset. And I did really feel like Samford, with the style of basketball that they play, and Kansas with the depth issues, I did really think that Samford might legitimately have a chance. So I'm watching this game. They go down 20. I'm getting sleepy because I got to get up early the next morning. I fall asleep with the TV on. I get awakened again because it got loud. And I look up, and Samford is down 1 point. Now, I was surprised because that full court pressure that Samford plays, Kansas was doing a good job of just throwing over the top of it, and they got countless dunks off of that. I thought they had their number. I think Coach McMillan made some adjustments and really give them some fits. So, with that being said, they start the pressure again. Legit chance to win this ball game. That is one of the worst calls I have ever seen in basketball, period. There's no subjectivity to it. It either is or it isn't, and it wasn't. And that's an official looking at the body of the player instead of looking at the play. He saw that whatever that kid's name finally got a chance to play. Pat McAfee calls him a white, so he's a white. He's gonna go up and dunk the basketball. His momentum is what caused him to fall. So here's my problem. In real time, I could see how that'd be a difficult call to make in real time. You got to figure they're full speed. So I'm not going to completely trash the officials. However, the camera angle that they showed, that official was right there with that same angle that camera showed the people watching. Here's what really bothered me. They stopped the game, I don't know how many times to review possessions and things that really didn't matter. And the one thing that they needed to get right, you can't review it. You can't look at it.
They don't even bother.
Not even question. The broadcast team is like, well, and they just move on as to not draw attention to it. It's inexcusable. Now, does that mean Samford would have won the ball game? I don't know. Who knows? But they deserved a shot to win or to tie the ball game and to make that, either an overtime game or an upset. So I'm really, the officiating, the thing that irritates me the most is we have to sit there with a stoppage of play over something that is plain as day, obvious, possession-wise, or whatever they're stopping the game for. And that play they don't review.
Yeah.
That they made the right call. That, hey, this game hangs in the balance. And so, I really, be honest with you, some of the officiating, I feel like it's been slanted against the Southern teams, SEC, Southern teams. They got that benefit of that call because they were Kansas. If you flip that call probably don't get made. That's just my argument.
Right.
I'm just going to go with it. But I was frustrated because they got robbed, and I had to stay up another 40 minutes to watch the end of the game because it was so close. And I wasn't even happy about it. So that's why I was upset. Samford got hosed. I will tell you this right now, and I'm just going to say it. I know Alabama played a great game. It was a needed game. I'll take Bucky McMillan over Nate Oates any day coaching my players.
Whoa!
I'll tell you that because he's going to recruit the type of players that will play with that type of intensity and that type of energy on the defensive end. He's going to recruit those type players, and they're going to play that way. And he's 10 deep.
Here's a question then: do those players exist at a high level?
Do they exist at a high level?
Or do they? Or are they only 2 or 3 stars that need a chip on their shoulder? Because if you're Nate Oates in Alabama, you can't chase 2 and 3 stars and expect to compete in the SEC.
I disagree.
I don't think that.
Yale didn't have 2 and 3 stars, and what did they do to Auburn?
I have to say to JJ's point there, Drew. I might would disagree considering that there's only There were only after the first round 3 teams left in the SEC when out of 8 that entered. So,
well,
but
I
will
don't
ask
think
you,
Listen,
I don't think those players exist at a high level anymore. I don't think you're
yeah,
going to
you're
get any
talking
No, I
about,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
I
talking
agree
about
with you
a,
on it.
you're talking about a one game, give it all you got
Yep.
type thing too. And
Yep.
honestly, we'll get to see whether Bucky can do that because he's not going to be at Sanford very long.
No.
Somebody's
No.
going to take him. He's going to be in a power conference.
he
Yeah.
did just a couple of hours ago from the time of this recording sign a 6-year contract extension with Samford. If I remember the
What's
year,
the-
I may be wrong on the years,
Yeah.
but I know he signed an extension.
What's the buyout though? In 2 years, when Louisville or
Yeah.
Kentucky or somebody comes calling,
Yeah.
he's gone.
Well,
Well,
I
here's
will
the-
say this. Speaking of Kansas, a major. I thought this was, and I'll quote myself on it, a heck of a compliment from Coach Bill Self in the postgame
Yes.
presser when he said, "That's quote. That's my first experience with buckyball, and I would just as soon not play against it again for a while." And
Yeah.
and I got to tell you, even though when Samford went down 20, JJ, as you said, Coach drew up a masterful adjustment game plan, if you will, adjusted the things on the fly very, very well. And then did you see the 3-point shot? They were down 4. Did you see the play he drew up to get a 3-point shot to draw them within 1? Oh my gosh. I had never seen, I had to look it up what they call it. They call it a ladder move. I had never seen anything like that in my life. It was executed beautifully. I don't know if he just drew that up on the board, if that was something they had run before, but Samford and getting a heck of a compliment there from Coach Bill Self. And I do think to Greg's point, Greg, I'll let you take off. I do think that game put Coach Bucky, I should call him, on the map, on the coaching map. Now, I think he'll have to be there at least 1 or 2 more years to see if he can maintain it on the national scale.
Right.
But he's got more national attention on him now than what he did before. Not just because he was in the NCAA tournament, but because I'm going to be frank, he made Kansas fans crap themselves, frankly.
Yeah. So here's what else I was going to say. Let's go back to to that game. That same crew, for the most part, they interchange a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them here. That was the same crew that called the Alabama game. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or was it the Auburn game? It may have been the Auburn officials.
If it was Alabama, if it was in particular that Grand Canyon game, I could tell you because I looked at Drew. We were watching it together. I looked at Drew and said, "I wonder if these are the same dang officials."
They were, and none of those have progressed on. So usually they grade them and they progress on to the Sweet 16. Nobody from that crew is making the Sweet 16, and that Spokane, Washington region had the most foul calls by far than any other region. They were talking about it today, how bad it really was.
There is one ref moving on that I wouldn't take with him, Doug Shows.
Hey, listen, that no type of basketball. I will die on this hill. When you see that much of a disparity in fouls, i.e., Plainview FYFFE in the regionals in 2021, there is no way that 2 teams play that much difference. That there's that many. There's that much difference in fouls. Grand Canyon shot 37 freaking free throws, and there is no way. There is no way. Thank God they did, right?
Yeah.
But there is no way at a high level college basketball game there is that much of a disparity. And I'm not being a homer here. I just see it. I can look at any stat line and see that, and I'm like, there's no way that 2 teams are going to play that much difference. That there's that big of a difference in foul calls. And
did you see that?
Let me say 2 things, and Greg, you may have been about to say it. Yeah. The Iowa West Virginia game in the girls' side of the bracket, where West Virginia had like 6 or 8 free throw attempts, and Iowa had 30. And of course, Iowa, the team that's got the golden
they're
girl
the
right
darling.
Clark.
Yeah.
The darling, if you will, as JJ said, perfect verbiage there. 2, JB, I see you're bored, man. How's your bracket doing?
It's not doing so great. I didn't really focus on stats. I mean, by the time I got to the bracket, I think it was Wednesday night before the tournament started the next day, and I knew I needed to fill out something. Last year, I think I did 5 or 6 brackets and done real well, but this year I took Drew's leadership skills and applied one bracket And even that bracket hadn't turned out so great. So, but to be fair, the team I picked to be champion is still in it. So I don't know. We'll see.
My Final Four still in. I'm good.
Got one team.
That's right. My winner's still in it.
Yep.
I'm only missing one from the Elite Eight.
How about heartbreak for UAB falling to San Diego State? I honestly felt for Coach Andy Kennedy and those boys because they were never they didn't get down like Samford did. They didn't trail by 20 plus at any given point. Those boys fought tooth and nail with San Diego State and had a chance. They had a legit chance in the final minute. Just couldn't pull it out. I felt for them. Honestly, I picked Auburn in my bracket to win. I did because I thought I would love to see a UAB and Auburn matchup. That would have been the round of 32. I think I made the comment on here as well about how sad it is that Auburn and UAB would have to go all the way to Spokane, Washington just to play each other, but still. And then Auburn ends up losing to Yale. I picked Auburn to win, but as a fan of another team, it didn't exactly hurt my feelings when they fell to the Bulldogs. I'm just saying.
So, hey,
my bracket.
So I just want to say right here, I picked Auburn to win, and I picked Alabama to lose. and y'all know how I feel about Alabama. I'm a Roll Tide. I can't stand Auburn. And I was sitting there watching the score of that game, and I'm like, dadgum, my bracket, I need Auburn to win, but screw it. I don't care. I just wanted to see them get beat by the educated white kids. Please.
So, hey, I had them Auburn going all the way to the Final Four and losing in the championship game. So I tried a little bit of that reverse. Yeah, I tried a little bit of that reverse mojo myself. So, hey, I thought, at the time, man, they were playing great ball. They were the most complete team. So let's talk about the flagrant 2. Is it a flagrant 2? Flagrant 1? What is it?
Yeah.
And they still should have won. Come on. It's Yale.
Listen, everybody's writing articles about how Nick Pringle's got an attitude problem and Nick Pringle this and Nick Pringle that. And guess what? I ain't seen one about the kid from Auburn that got kicked out of the game.
No.
They're saying he's like,
for looking to his right
than he does.
For looking to his right, holding up that forearm and just waylaying the guy right in the chest. Away from the ball. Non-basketball play wasn't going to affect anything but putting a bruise on the guy's sternum. Absolutely, as much as we railed on the officials a moment ago, absolutely the right call there to flagrant to that kid and immediately DQ him. I don't care who you are. I hate it that the kid made a boneheaded decision in the moment, in the heat of the moment. Maybe I don't know what he was frustrated about. Or if he was just looking to decide, that I'm gonna do what I can to cheat around here. But either way, absolutely the right call.
So the previous play down the court, he did get hit in the throat. They didn't see it. They didn't call it. But two things about that gentleman, and I'll use that term loosely. He has been doing that all year long. He's been like that all year. Okay. Yeah. Now we all love to hate KD, but he's been much worse. And this is his fourth school in 4 years. So somewhere along the lines, there's something going on with him, and they're, again, like I said, nobody feels worse than him and blah, 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 this. Bull crap. He put up a tweet later on, just within like 5 minutes. Like they're being clowns or something. I don't remember what all it was.
Got kicked out, went into the locker room and tweeted.
Yeah.
Hey, and here's what really bothers me about the whole thing is you get Bruce Pearl get up there and want to talk about that foul call and whine and make excuses why his team couldn't beat Yale. And I'm so sick of Bruce Pearl. He's always whining about foul calls.
You're sick of Pearl. You're sick of
It's always somebody else's fault. It's never his players. They pray before games. They do this stuff, and everybody's highlighting those things, and those are great. But the way they act on the court and the way he acts, it's just I can't stand it. He may be a great guy. If we ran into him on the street and talked to him, heck, I like Robbie Coker on the street if I see him and talk to him. But when I watch him coach basketball, he's a heel. You use a wrestling term. He's a heel, and I hate the guy. Not literally, but he would be a great wrestling heel, and that's what Bruce Pearl is. To bring wrestling into the equation. Bruce, I'm tired of him. And they got what they deserved.
Two things to finish out my thoughts on the NCAA tournament. JJ, I agree with you on the Bucky McMillan thing to a certain. I disagree that he's a better coach. Now, if I was picking, if I had a son and they were going to go play college basketball and I got to pick, I'd send him to Bucky McMillan instead of Nate Oates. Don't get me wrong. So that's where I agree with you. Second, the only thing I have to say about the Grand Canyon, Alabama game was an Auburn guy, Charles Barkley. This is a quote. Grand Canyon, that was the dumbest game of basketball I think I may have ever seen. Everyone went one-on-one. They missed how many free throws? I'm not sure what they were doing offensively. I don't think they ran a play the entire second half. That was some of the dumbest basketball I've ever seen from grown college men. That was some of the worst basketball decisions that you're ever going to see a college team make out there.
Yeah,
I don't think he's wrong either, though.
No,
they had 5 assists. They had 5 assists the whole game. I don't know if you heard him later on. He was like, somebody told him that. He was like, 5. He was like, hell, I didn't see him pass the ball 5 times, so I don't know how they got 5 assists.
Yeah, said they've got a crack staff at TBS if they can find those in the replay.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, all I know is this. I want to know. Well, I don't know it. I want to know who the heck's skin was he trying to get under when he called them Alabama University?
Somebody had been writing him about Auburn losing, and I think I can't remember which one of the ones it was, but he actually said the name. He's like, I couldn't tell who he said. I couldn't tell who he said either, so I don't know who it was. But
I love Charles, man. I love him.
I watched it on Twitter. I think, probably 10 or 12 times. Kept repeating it, trying to figure it out. What have you got there?
That's me and Charles, baby.
Oh yeah.
If I can get it. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me see. Let me see if I can blow you up here. Hang on a minute here.
Try to see if I can get it. I probably need to lower myself some.
There he is.
That is.
Look at him.
That's a young Greg Mears.
That's a young baby.
Styling and profiling.
Wow.
It hurt to touch that. It hurt to touch that Auburn jersey, though. It kind of burnt my hands, kind of like the Wicked Witch trying to pick those shoes up.
I don't know. You were smiling awful wide in that picture.
He was paying me a lot of money to run that place, so.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And no, folks, don't adjust your screens. We're playing Russian roulette with the windows apparently because it just moved us all around a little bit. JB has stepped off for a moment, but we'll get him in the conversation in a moment. But again, hopefully your bracket's doing well. Folks, we got just a couple of weeks on the tournament challenge left. And let me pull it up here. I should have done this a moment ago. Let me see who our current leader is, because when this episode drops is when the Sweet 16 takes off. We drop it at 8 a.m. every Thursday morning, and within a few hours after it drops, the Sweet 16 gets underway. So there's not going to be any adjustments made until a few hours after this initially drops. And right now, there's no name on it. But whoever ESPN fan 6566228144's picks 14 is, they got UConn as the champion. They are currently number 1. Mamerka's 13 picks is number 2. There's actually a 3-way tie for second place. John Garrett's in there as well as J.L. Rayson's picks. And the first one of us is Drew. Drew's bracket of integrity, and he's got UConn as the winner. I'm looking down the list here. The next one is G Money, Mr. Greg Mears, coming in as a tie for 15th place. And then there's my wife at number 18 ahead of me.
Oh my gosh. And I'm below you guys. How bad is that?
she's tied with the guy that's been on our broadcast before, and Josh Ingram. His bracket is called Josh's Uninformed Decisions. So she's tied with Josh. CJ Froggy. It took me a second to figure out who that was, but I realize now who that was. It was Carolyn Johnson. She is also in a tie for 18th place as well. JJ, she's beating you. You are right behind her in 21st.
After
UConn is your winner.
So I'm going to sell out.
Miss Johnson's got Tennessee as her winner.
I'm going to sell out Bruce Pearl.
Yeah.
Listen, and I am dead last.
Thank God. At least I'm ahead of somebody.
But
as far as
listen,
our guys are.
listen. That first weekend is all your little point stuff. The goal of your bracket in the first weekend is to make it through with the most teams possible. So right now, just for example, I have 7 of my. So there's a possibility I could still get 15 of the 15 of the. Anyway, I've got 7 of my Elite 8 left. 7 of my Elite 8 are left. All of my Final Fours left. My champions.
That's how you win. Yeah.
That's how you win.
So it tells you
more points. You get more points the further you go on. So like the Sweet 16, I think you get 30 points a game.
Yeah, if you pull that over to the right, it'll tell you how many points you've got available left. And that's where I'm in 15th, but I think I've got like 700 mats left.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Now, JB did not join the public group. JB, you're in the private group that we have just solely for us. And he currently sits in 3rd place. I did not realize that you weren't in the public bracket, first of all. But second of all, he has a unique pick as a winner. Most everybody has gone either UConn or Purdue. Some SEC folks would go with their team like Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, whatever. JB, you picked Arizona. Why?
Again, I didn't study. I know no one can see me right now. I had a phone call from work, but
we can see you.
Oh, now there we are. So I got I don't know. Everyone was picking everyone else. I mean, I could have went with higher seeds, and I just chose to do some upsets. And there's no rhythm or rhyme to my reasoning behind this. But Arizona doesn't look bad either. If you see them playing, they have a really potent offense.
Well,
so
I think I've got Arizona in the Final Four. I think my Final Four is UConn, Arizona, and Purdue and Houston.
So back to JB's picks though. It's been a long time since the number one's actually won this thing, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Yeah.
So a 2 or a 3.
I put no number ones in my Final Four.
Yeah. That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Well, I mean, look at my position of where I'm at. So I mean, it's not really working.
Yeah,
is it?
But like Drew says, all you need is a couple upsets, man, and those points start adding up now.
Yeah. Well, you take a year like last year, and that strategy would have been great because there was absolutely no
San Diego State, FAU in the finals.
Yeah,
Final Four.
Two of my Final Four are gone. I had JMU and Dayton actually being 2 Cinderellas getting there, and they're both gone.
Wow, you gambled more than I did.
I had, but I did have UConn and Purdue making it to the championship. So
I had Auburn, Houston, Creighton, and Arizona.
Creighton.
I think
I'm Creighton.
I think I'm the only one that's got Tennessee getting past Creighton this weekend. And I agree.
Up at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit.
Hey guys, I got one thing too I want to talk about bracket wise. Next year, I listen to these guys in Birmingham. JJ, you might too. We need to come up with something that the loser has to do. Okay, there needs to be a negative thing that goes on here. Like last year.
Wait, loser of us or loser of public?
Yeah, loser of us.
Okay.
Loser of us. And it was like last year, if Jim Dunaway would have lost, he was going to have to do a calendar. So he was going to have to skid off. The loser last year had to go to Chattanooga and go to the Testicle Festival and eat Rocky Mountain oysters. So they kind of pick out something for everybody. This year it's really, really fun.
Man.
Dunaway's already lost. He's got to go to 5 college coliseums in one day and hit a 3-pointer. He can't call them and ask them. And they're going to dress him up like, what's the character from Tropic?
Jackie Moon. Jackie
Moon. They're going to dress him up like that. Headband, afro, high socks.
Hey,
he's got to record him.
We're not doing that this year because.
Yeah, we can. Well, it can't be settled now.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to pull off. By the way, 5 arenas. I tried to map that out in my head. Even if he knows he can get in there, I was thinking Starkville, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, and then shoot to Auburn or Jacksonville, whichever one's closest.
He could do Sanford.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he could do Sanford in there too, and Jacksonville. Yeah. But getting in too without letting these guys know, man, that could be a
getting in and finding a basketball Not get in trouble.
Well,
Hi.
it would be hard for us to do this on this crew because the four of us live here in the same state within just a few miles of each other. If JB happened to be on the losing end of that, should he not pick up the family and move back home, which we all pray for, he might not have anybody down there to hold him accountable if he were to lose something like that. I'm just
come
saying.
on.
I'm gonna have to
He's
call
a-
Brandy up.
He's
and
a
be like,
man
hey,
of
help me out
ethics.
here.
Yeah, he's a man
Yeah.
of ethics. He's got somebody
Man
Man
of
of
to
integrity.
And of integrity. There it is.
No,
Because
that's
I would-
Drew's
I would
bracket
sure-
name.
I sure enough would expect either one of you four to pull it off, whatever it was, and I'm not there. So
I say here's
You'd be
what I say
calling.
next year. Here's what I say next year, not this year. Next year, the loser has to let their wife pick their fantasy football team, wife or girlfriend.
wow, dang. Oh, and if we're gonna do that, then no one can influence their decisions.
Yeah, right. She's
Well,
got
hey,
Gentlemen,
Hey,
I'm
look.
safe. You'll have to pick somebody up off the street to pick mine then.
hey, at the rate I'm going with my bracket, I would be glad to let somebody else pick my
Hey,
bracket in
Amen.
fantasy football.
Hey, Greg, downtown Jacksonville has a lot of homeless women, so you'd be all right.
There you go. No teeth, please.
Okay.
Hey, funny story. We were in the fantasy football group here in our neighborhood. We had a whole group of us together, most of them Jacksonville fans, and the guy who hosted it, his I believe it was his mother, not his wife's. I can't remember which, but she picked like 5 or 6 Jacksonville players to be on our fantasy team, and then we had another person who just picked fantasy players and by on how attractive they were, and those folks did the best in the
Probably
league.
did well. But yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, they
probably
did very well. Like me and Brady are going through, okay, so who we need, logically players, and both of us didn't make it to the finals in that league. So yeah, it was great. So I mean, there is some science behind just picking up, mascots, color uniforms, stuff like that.
But
There is a science.
you did, if I remember right, you did make the championship in the league I'm in with you and Brady.
Oh yeah, I smoked everybody in that league.
Yeah. I don't know what science you applied there. I don't know if you were looking at men and calling them good looking or not. And
But I
they
mean,
look good in this
hey,
color,
hey,
but
whatever works to not lose.
let's move on to our next segment, the shortest segment of them all. Where was Greg? The famous to us T-shirt segment. And Greg, take us through where you've been, my friend.
Can you see that? Is
We
that not the
can.
meanest watermelon you've ever seen? That is from Rocky Ford, Colorado. I went about
Nice.
two and a half hours out of my way going through Denver just to get this shirt. So, little school, man. I mean, I tell you what, it was hard to find anything because it was one caution light and a Dollar General. That's all I could find. So,
Of course.
luckily, so makes Fife look like a metropolis. They're more of a basketball school. They do have a football stadium, and I've shared some of those pictures with you. They're the ones that when you walk through, and I don't know if it's Dabo style, and they run down and touch the rock, but they've got this big, huge rock painted like a watermelon, and they've even got the black dots for the seeds in there. So they're not, they didn't even do seedless. It's a full seed watermelon. You're spitting seeds everywhere.
Yeah.
And everything there is painted watermelon color. I mean, but I love this one. I went to a couple cool ones this week too when I was in Texas, but this is probably my favorite, the Melanair dude.
Nice.
Now, me being in Florida, I don't know. Like you guys probably talk about this stuff like on your trips to football games and stuff. But Greg, how do you end up in all these places?
Just traveling, but when I travel, like this time I went down with a friend, he was having some fantasy baseball thing, so I wasn't part of the group. So while he was doing this fantasy baseball draft for 5 hours, I got in the car, hit Google and Max Preps, and just went looking for teams that had. So like I went by somebody that was the Kangaroos, the Roughnecks, the Explorer, or they were the Exporters because they're in a port, so they export stuff. So that's the name of their team.
Really?
And I just do it like that and get
Wow.
out, take some pictures, and try to find somewhere that'll have a T-shirt.
I know a
Just
lot
like
of
something-
a lot of our viewers don't get a chance to see what our we have a group chat and we talk and such on there, but you do send a lot of those pictures through through the group chat. And I was curious. I was like, how does he end up in Texas in the middle of the week?
That's what I thought.
I mean, like I could understand Tennessee or Mississippi, but I mean Texas. So Yeah, that was
And like the polka dots, I went with my brother. We went up to Gettysburg, but I already knew about the polka dots and already heard of them. So again, I just kind of mapped. My brother was gracious enough he was with me on this trip to the Mountaineers too. I know thinks I'm crazy. Like, we're going 2.5 hours away so you can buy a T-shirt. Heck yes, we are. It's my truck. I'm driving. You're done.
If I would have known that, I'd had you buy me one of those. Those are cool.
I like it. That
I
might
could
be
get
one
you-
of your more unique. I think you've had two pretty darn good unique ones the last couple of weeks. The polka
Yeah,
dots and
this
the
one.
Melaneers, the meanest watermelon you've ever seen. All right,
Yeah.
time for our 10 minutes of crap segment. 10 minutes of crap. And I'm going to start it a little differently. I'm going to take the reins, and it's not so much crap just because I'm just this excited about opening day. I'm going to play 2 bits of sound for you here. I have permission to play one, and I don't have permission to play the other. I'm not apologizing for either. And it's only going to take about 1:10 seconds, okay? So first of all, I'm going to play this one. Here we go. Let me make sure my volume is up. Yep, there we go.
The Atlanta Braves are world champions. The Atlanta Braves have won the 2021 World Series.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still living off that hype. Y'all see that blue bat right up here? That's a World Series miniature bat straight from the Louisville Slugger Museum. And the other one I want to play actually comes. This is sort of one of those pieces of 10 minutes of crap that got recorded from this past season. Now, 2 of the guys on the panel right now were not here for this, but you'll recognize it. This is us having some fun. Literally, I think we had just finished on the night, and we had the Braves game on the big screen. So I'm gonna play it.
Oh, please, God.
A little easier, baby.
If he strikes out, I'll never watch Atlanta Braves baseball again, and I'll leave this hat here. It's
I can always use a new Atlanta
It's
hat.
barely worn.
Oh, come on now.
It'll be my gift to you, Adam.
We need a hit.
Oh, or a walk. I'll take a walk.
Good Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take a walk.
Let's see who's up next.
Matt Olson, son.
Oh,
This is why
Okay.
we
Okay,
have
now.
to do
Okay.
it now.
Okay.
We have to do it
Okay.
now.
Okay, come on. Come on, baby. Come on.
yeah, boy.
Come on. Now's the time to rake one, baby. Come on.
Somebody.
Just a single be great. A single would get him home. Come on. Oh!
Hey!
Oh!
Yes!
Yeah, boy!
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, boy!
You better be worth all that money.
Talking about Austin,
so
it
good.
better be worth all that money. So that happened right there in the Braves postseason when the season was hanging in the balance. Little did we know, like a day or two later, they'd get knocked out. But we were all excited for it. Me, JJ, and Drew. We just had some fun. So there's a little bit more inside what we do on Monday nights. And just tried to just have a little fun with it. That's legit my piece of 10 minutes of crap. Didn't take 5 minutes. Drew, I'm going to start with you this evening. Then JB, you're next. So get prepared. Drew, what you got on your mind for your 10 minutes of crap? And we'll see if we can kind of dumb this down a little bit to where we don't take as long.
Yeah, so two things, both NFL related. No, I don't always want to talk about the NFL, but there's been some significant news over the past 2 days. Okay, rule changes. So they're in their session right now to where they can vote and approve rule changes and stuff. 2 that I wanted to point out. 1, the hip drop tackle now illegal. I'll comment on them in a second. The second thing I want to talk about is the kickoff. The kickoff. They changed to the XFL style kickoff. So I'll go with my good. I'll take it, and then the one I don't like. So the kickoff, I'll take that. I think it's absolutely dumb that you have grown men running 45, 50 yards down the field, and they kick it out of the end zone half the time. And when they don't, they fair catch it every time. What's the point? Why am I watching? So with this system, there's a zone that the kicker can kick it into, and if they kick it into this zone, the receiving team cannot fair catch it. They have to return it. They have to return it. But it's not like in the normal kickoffs in the way that, your kickoff team starts on one end and your receiving team is spread out all the way down across the field. They start, I don't know on what yard lines. I guess we can look that up. But basically, they start about 10 yards apart from each other, the receiving team and the kickoff team, and the kicker's way back in the back and the receiver's way down towards the goal line. I think it's safer. People cannot like it because it's not the same. But again, we're just wasting our time with kickoffs right now. They can either fair catch it or they kick it out of the end zone. So what's the point? The one I don't like, the hip drop tackle, all I'm going to say about it is get ready to get hit in the knees and ankles every single time you run the ball, because that's where I'd hit you. If I can't grab you and drop my hips, I'm about to hit you in the foot. And I'm going to tear up your knees, I'm going to tear up your ankles, and I'm going to hurt your feet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I know a lot of players won't necessarily agree with you. One that comes to mind was Kenyon Drake going on a Twitter tirade about it and saying this is absolutely the right call because he felt like he got done wrong and got hurt off of a routine play. I agree with you on both sentiments.
I get it. I get it. Look, I don't like seeing people get hurt either.
No,
it's a contact sport.
Yes.
So here's the two things that are going to happen as a result of not hip drop tackling. One, I'm going to grab you around your torso, and I'm going to hold you still until somebody comes in, cleans your clock. If you don't get down. Or two, I'm going to hit you in the knee and tear up your knee without dropping my hips and grabbing you by the hips and dropping.
So we're just going to tear your knee up anyway, even without.
Yeah, we're just going to dive. Yeah. We're going to tackle you below the waist. That's the only way to go. Where else can you tackle them? You can't hit them up high.
Can't grab them.
And if you're coming up from behind them, you can't grab them around the neck. They'll throw a horse collar flag on you.
Nope.
So let me ask you guys a question regarding this, and that's, I'm not going to say too much because that's my 10 minutes or my segment as well. So do you think that? Listen, we all know that money drives everything. I think that's established. Do you think that they're disguising it as player safety? But do you think it's another way to disarm the defense so that we can see more points scored?
Oh, absolutely.
More.
Well,
I don't care. I don't care what they say. I feel like it's just another attempt to take defense out of the equation.
I get it. I get it in the fact that this past year, the NFL lost a lot of money because of people that were injured. Just think of some of the QB matchups you had in primetime games. Like nobody's. And because starting QBs, there was we talked about it at one point. How many starting QBs there was in the NFL this year? Well, that didn't just stop at QBs. There was at least 4 running backs that I could name that got hurt. There was a bunch of wide receivers that were hurt. TJ Hawkinson comes to mind as a tight end that got tackled just like I would tackle somebody now, by the way.
Yeah.
Tore his ACL and was out. And so I think that's what they're trying to do something to stop.
So let me ask.
I get it.
Let me ask y'all all something though. We pass these things back along in this text stream that JB was talking about. They're real back when football was real. And you could hit somebody, and you see these games that they just killing these guys.
Oh,
but the guys get back up. So what's making these guys now be such poo nannies that you touch them?
Did those guys get back up with torn labrums and torn ACLs?
They might, but they still played.
Probably.
But I'm not even going the soft route. Have they gotten too strong and too physical now that you can't? Because you look at some of those hits, and it's like, my gosh.
It's a good
guys
point.
Are just killing people.
That's a good point.
Good point.
I
think
grown men that are
you got.
That's all they do.
You got 300-pounders running 4.4s.
Yeah.
Or 4.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
So no, that's a great
That's screaming. You could hear the wind off that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got.
Well, actually, that's a comment. That's a comment that I heard. It was actually from Brody Dalton when he went to play at UAB. They played at Georgia, his freshman year, and Jalen Carter was still on Georgia. He said the scariest part of that about that guy is he was huge, he was big, he looked like he could rip me into pieces and eat me. The scariest part about him, he was faster than I was.
Yeah.
Not only could he have ripped me up, he could have caught me and ripped me up.
JB, it is time for you, my friend, to take off with your 10 minutes of crap.
All right, so it's not going to be 10 minutes.
That's
All right,
okay.
so money is power, and the NFL is all about making money. And the NFL is connected to Vegas, very connected to gambling. So, like Drew was stating, if you have players who are not playing, then you're affecting the money line. So they want to keep these players safe. But on the other hand, these players are some players are sissified. Okay, sissified. That's what I would call it, sissified. They can't handle getting hit. They can't handle being pulled down. Players back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s could handle being hit. We have a young man that's at our house right now that plays basketball. He told me just a little while ago that he's going to play football this year, and I said, "Well, just be ready to be hit. I mean, don't be scared of being hit. Just take the hit and keep going." Mm-hmm. These NFL players aren't conditioned that way anymore. No. They're conditioned for being strong. They're conditioned for being big. They're conditioned for being fast. But as far as being tough, they are not conditioned to be tough. And that's something that's changed over the years. I mean, parents have sissified their kids, and you don't see it at FYFFE, but you do see it at a lot of high schools to where kids are so afraid to be hit. They're like, "No, I ain't gonna do it because I might get hurt." Whereas people back in the 80s and 90s, heck yeah, I'm doing it. I get a chance to hit somebody, I'm gonna hit somebody. And so, that's my opinion on that. I thought the same thing y'all thought on that tackle rule change they made. People are gonna get hurt. Right. People are going to get in their car. They're going to drive down the road. They're going to have an accident. They're going to get hurt. Right. People are going to go outside and play basketball. They're going to get hurt. Right. I mean, Brady fractured his foot before tryout sophomore year, missed 13 games, but he made the team even on a fractured foot. So people are going to get hurt. People are just too weak-minded. They can't handle getting that contact.
And I say this to your point, JB, in that you don't see it at FYFFE. Because when a kid doesn't put out effort, the kid doesn't show toughness, the kid doesn't show grit, whatever it is, Coach Benefield will yank him and say, "Get on the bench and throw the next kid out there and see what he's got. See if he can do it." In the NFL, where you're talking about it being money driven, you can't exactly do that because you're writing a 6-figure, almost 7-figure check per game for these guys. So you have to go, we're paying him. I got to have him out there, and that's like you said, it's money driven.
And they're super athletes.
We see week after week this happen to where a quarterback may be sucking so bad that he should be yanked off the field and put the backup in because the backup's good, right? Behind Richardson in Indianapolis was it Gardner? Was that his name?
Gardner. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he came in and played when Richardson went out, right? He done really well for the Colts. I mean, they didn't win all their games, but he played exceptionally well. So you have quarterbacks in the league who are starting because they're making all this money, but their backup ain't making nothing. And the backup, Flacco, Cleveland, right? I mean, he came in and just threw. I put him in my fantasy lineup. Threw 300-yard games, 4 games in a row. He's from an old school type of, he's old school, right? Kurt Warner, old school. These players were prepared to be hit. They knew standing in the pocket was dangerous. They knew that quarterbacks ain't made that way no more. You hurt Patrick Mahomes, you're likely to be fined for whatever hit you made, no matter what it was. It could have been clean. Yeah. You're going to be fined.
You may get kicked out of the league.
Right. You may not be playing anymore.
They've become the LeBron James of football.
Yeah, but that's what our players
you touch me and, oh, my God.
Yep. All right,
Joe
JJ.
Flacco. Well,
JJ,
we're on the same. We're kind of in the same vein here about these rule changes. Number one, Drew brought it up. The kickoff. I like the kickoff. They modeled that after the XFL kickoff. I do like it. Hopefully, it will, spawn some explosive kickoff returns and things of that nature. Because we all like to see offense, of course. We like to see scores and big plays. So I do think it's safer, and I'm all for making the game safer. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for that. I think the advancements with helmets and the technology that they have. But listen, I'm just going to say it like this, man. When I was a kid, I had 2 brothers. The only vehicle that we had was a 78 Ford pickup truck 4-wheel drive, 4-speed, and we all rode in that, and we were standing in the seat half the time. We stood in the seat. There wasn't no airbag. There wasn't no there wasn't no shoulder harness. None of that stuff. Things happen. And I'm all for safety. I'm all for the technology. Even with our kids, sometimes, gosh, I did things I'd never let my kids do. You know, I wandered around in the woods for hours, or whatever the case is. So we can take it to extremes. With that being said, this new rule change regarding the tackle is freaking ridiculous. To quote J.J. Watt, I think he was quoted saying, you might as well strap on flags, and you might as well have flag football, because how are you going to tackle? Drew outlined it. You're basically going to try to either trip them or hit them in the legs or just hang on for dear life until. And I will say this, for all the Derrick Henry fans, he may have a career year next year if this rule.
Here's what
Nobody's going to tackle him.
Here's what I'm going to tell my defense. I'll take 15 yards.
Yeah.
Take it over a touchdown.
Yep. No, absolutely.
That's
what's going to happen.
But
so
I can't change. I can't change how I've been taught to tackle my whole life.
No. So with that being said, with the rule change, I think it's money motivated. I don't think it has to do with injuries or player safety. I don't think any of that stuff coming from the NFL has any freaking thing to do with player safety. I think it's more about how can we, look like we're doing good things and still make all the money that we want to make and do all the things that we want to do. I'll say this. Football is a contact sport. This is a simple fix. These guys make more money than they've ever made that anybody's ever made in the history of NFL football.
And lifetime insurance.
They have insurance coverage. They practice less and have less contact than they ever had in the history of NFL football. You sign up for it. If you want to cover yourself, if you want to make it, if you're covering your rear end, if you're the NFL, because you don't want somebody coming back and suing you because, we didn't know that like with the CTE situation, which is serious, right? We all know that.
Serious,
Not minimizing that in no means. But what I'm saying is, make them sign up. It's a release. Heck, when we take kids on church trips, make sure little Johnny didn't do something stupid, while we're on the church trip, and then we get held responsible for it. You sign a waiver. Sign
that little Johnny. He's a bad dude.
If you put that in front of every NFL player right now and say, I'm going to sign this, they're going to do it. Because they've got the chance to make money that most of us will only in our wildest dreams make. Yep. And so I know money don't fix everything, but hey, if you don't like it, go find another line of work. Go out here where people really are risking their lives. And man, they were building this freaking tower, cell tower on my last trip. And these guys are 300 foot up in the air with a little harness on. And probably making $25 an hour. I hope they're making more than that. But find something else to do. If you don't want to get hit, like JB said, if you don't want to suffer physically, then go get a desk job at a freaking bank and write loans or do something else. That's all I'm saying.
Actually use that degree that you supposedly got at whatever college you went to.
It's freaking ridiculous. They're grown men. They make grown decisions. And quit treating them like a bunch of little league kids, and they're grown men. Let them play.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, Greg, was little Johnny hanging out with Corn Pop, because Corn Pop was a bad dude too.
Yeah, little Johnny, you got to watch that kid. You got to watch him. He's a bad guy.
We're watching little Greg right now as he gets ready for his 10 minutes of crap portion here.
Little Greg.
To wrap it
all
up.
right, so we talked about this for just a second, but I want to go MLB, and I want to go Otani and the gambling deal going on right here.
Oh boy.
And how big of
Oh,
a
man.
conspiracy is this about to come down? Listen,
Let's
guys.
not go down. Let me preface it, Greg. Let's not go down the rabbit hole tonight. All right, we're already a little long. Let's not go down the rabbit hole. We'll talk, but boys, let's not go down the rabbit hole.
I'll be quick. All right. First off, everybody's going, "Oh, how could this happen? How could this happen?" And you see that, how could this happen, being brought to you by mybookie.com on the DraftKings set of ESPN. What do you mean? How does it happen? I mean, my God, they've married with this stuff. They knew it was coming. These guys have been betting their whole lives. I mean, it's nothing new. But I want to know, first off, and if any of y'all have any illegal gambling experience, I've heard that these bookies keep really good records, so it's going to come out that it was Otani. Who gives an interpreter $4.5 million of credit? That's crazy. And then also, again, how does an interpreter have access to Otani's things?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And then, okay, look, you guys are ending up, y'all like brothers, good friends. Adam, you get a gambling problem or something happens and you come to me next week for $500 and I got the money, I'm going to help you out. But you come the next week, I'm going to say, dude, you need to stop that. And I might even give you 500 more. But number 3, man, you're on your own. And he gave this guy 8 wire transfers for like $850,000 or whatever. It's crap. They're going to try to cover it up because he's the face of baseball. But
Yes,
it's an
make the
FBI
money.
investigation. Yeah. It's an FBI investigation. So I don't know if the dude's going to finish out the year.
Hey,
I don't have a gambling problem. I do have becoming a dad problem. So can we talk about that $500?
Yeah.
Here in a minute?
If that translator has to be the worst gambler in the history of gambling. That's all I have to say. If he lost that much money, he's me gambling. That would be me.
On soccer. Suppose he was betting on soccer in June, July, and August. Come on, man. Otani was betting on baseball. Get it over with. Suspend him. Let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Whatever you got to do, but come on.
Whoa.
Me. Oh,
Coach
man.
Benefield would agree with you, Greg.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah,
Pete.
That's right.
Yeah.
Pete Rose will be the head of the committee in looking into this.
I saw a great meme with that. It was like it was Pete standing by this really attractive Oriental or Asian girl saying, "I didn't know that was an option," blaming the interpreter.
That
Fantastic.
Okay. That might be the one to end on right there.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
By the way, that's definitely going to make it in the preview. I'm just saying. Oh, man. Sort of to tease people. Okay, speaking of teasing people about what's upcoming, we got a couple of things to let you in on. We'll start with Drew this evening. Drew, what's upcoming at FYFFE?
So upcoming at FYFFE, the annual FFA greenhouse sale begins on April the 8th from 8 until 3. Different types of ferns, tomatoes, and pepper plants, along with mosquito and aloe plants. There's about 4,000 that they have up for sale, but I guarantee you they'll be gone. So get them while you can. Get more info, you can go to the FYFFE High School website or our Facebook page or FYFFE High School Facebook page. So, but I guarantee you they'll be gone. So if you want one, you better get at it.
JJ, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We're over halfway through the high school baseball and softball seasons already. It's hard to believe.
Gosh, it's hard to believe. And you know what? I actually got a chance to go to a baseball game yesterday, and it was just nice to sit. Even though the wind was blowing, it was a little nasty. Nice ball game. Forgot how much fun high school baseball is. With that being said, our varsity and junior varsity baseball, they're going to go on the road and play Old Hatchie. First pitch is at noon. It is spring break. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
The varsity is going to play Friday evening at Sandrock for a doubleheader, and the first pitch is going to be at noon as well. And then softball's on the road. They're on a bit of a break, to be honest with you. Returning to the field on Monday, and they're going to welcome my very own North Sand Mountain Thundering Herd. to Fife, and Tuesday game at home versus Eider, and both first pitches are at 4:30 for those games.
All right.
So that's it.
So, folks,
Is that
get
a
on
bison
out.
hat? Sorry.
Well, it's the best I could do because my nephews both play for North Sand Mountain, play baseball, and they wouldn't hook me up with a sweet North Sand Mountain hat. So this is actually a minor league. This is the Buffalo Bison minor league baseball team. We actually have powder blue uniforms and navy, so I had to support in some way. So that's the only thing blue that I have. Everything else is red. So yeah.
Just for good measure. Just for good measure.
So I was at South Pittsburgh. I looked around. I was trying to find somebody to see, hey, why won't the South Pittsburgh Pirates? Why won't they play the Fife Red Devils? It would be a classic game. It would be one that many would love to see. I know I'd love to see it. While I was walking around the baseball field and then got over to the stadium at Bean Field there in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee yesterday.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, it's been fun. Let's see if we can get all 5 of us on again here really, really soon. Again, you've been watching or you've been listening, if you're on Spotify, to Fife Focus the podcast, once more presented by Froggy Freeze, Johnson's Froggy Freeze, with 3 trailers to conveniently serve you at any event that you've got, whether it be church function, school function, family function, whatever it might be. They can serve you in the 3 fully equipped trailers that are fully licensed and certified, and they will come to you. That's the best part about it, and it's reasonably priced. They've got over 35 flavors of shaved ice, as well as some hot drinks should you need if you're a little bit cool. Check them out. Johnson's Froggy Freeze. They're all over Fife football games here in the fall, and right now they're all over Fife baseball and softball games. Give them a call at 256-717-7239. Again, 256-717-7239. We look forward to talking with you next week as we get into April. Gentlemen, before we go, I will say this. May God bless each and every one of you as we have hit the Easter season here coming up this weekend. So to each one of you and your families, I want to wish you all a very happy Easter. May God bless you. And to our listeners, our watchers, the same to you. May God bless each and every one of your households, each member of your family, and may you truly remember the reason why we celebrate Easter. It's not about the marketism, and it's not about the bunny and the eggs and all of that. It's about the risen Savior, Jesus Christ, from the grave. Amen. Gentlemen, Greg, JB, Drew, JJ, I love each and every one of you. It's been a pleasure, man.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching Fife Focus, everybody. As always, go Big Red.